pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first order of business is public comment. Robin, do we have any public comment this evening? And for anyone, this is public comment is for an opportunity for you to discuss anything that's on your mind that is not formally on our agenda this evening. So if you've got something you would like to address to the city that is not on our scheduled agenda for this evening, this is the time to come forward.
We're checking to make sure there's no general comment. No, we did not.
Okay, I'll close public comment. Are we exceptionally loud? Or is it just me? Does it sound echoey to everybody, or does it sound good? Okay. No, it said we're good. Thank you, though. So next item is the approval of the action minutes from our August 22nd meeting. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the action minutes from the August 22nd meeting, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed?
I'll make a motion to approve the action minutes from.
And I'll second.
All right.
August 22nd.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Second.
Ron.
So the first item is RZ 18-13 BC 1807 13090 Purple Road by Kai Tang Su Dynasty to rezone from AG1 agricultural to R3A single family residential to develop 73 single family lots on 47.1145 acres at a density of 1.55 units per acre, and a two-part concurrent variance to one, reduce the rural trail from 10 feet to 5.2 feet, and two, to reduce the stream setback from 25 feet to 0 feet. And so the applicant has requested for deferral, but we are going to go ahead and continue to present our staff report, and then the applicant can come up and speak on behalf of his client, and then we'll also have an opportunity for anybody in opposition to come up to speak as well.
Okay. Robin, before you do so, after I asked you to do this, I have not read the opening. So if you'll all bear with me, because this is a formal meeting of the Planning Commission, there's a charge that I need to read before we begin. This is a regular meeting of the City of Milton Planning Commission. I'm Paul Moore, chairperson. This is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on rezonings, use permits, concurrent variance applications, comprehensive land use plan, plan map, and other related plans and amendments to the zoning ordinance. I'd like to introduce the members of the Planning Commission this evening. To my left and to your right is Samit Shah, Fred Edwards, Heather Sparks, I'm Paul Moore, Chris Doty, Mark Bittner, and Ron Gilbert. The petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. I'd like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures conducting this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks provided time remains with the allotted time. The staff of the Community Development Department will be keeping track of the time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Each speaker must fill out a speaker card before speaking and leave it with a staff member of the Community Development Department. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official, the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filled out a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Each application has been properly filed with the Department of Community Development. Signs have been posted on each site. The matter has been advertised, and the notices have been mailed to property owners affected by this zoning as required by the Milton zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to the City of Milton Mayor and City Council for final disposition. The Mayor and City Council hearing will be approximately 3.5 weeks from this hearing on the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. in these council chambers. The Community Development Department has reviewed each application in conjunction with various agencies and departments, both internal and external to the city. Staff's recommendations, findings, and conclusions are here before us in written form, which has been made available to all petitioners and to the public. Demonstration of any sort within the chambers is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, dialogue with the person speaking, or outbursts. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent. All remarks will be addressed by the Planning Commission. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. In addition, the applicant shall not submit materials to the Planning Commission during the meeting unless requested to do so by the Commission. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the Commission in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packets to the Commission. Finally, to the applicant, if your petition is deferred in accordance with the Milton zoning ordinance, you are required to update or obtain a new sign for reposting. Failure to update or repost will result in further delay. There are no exceptions. And that is my charge to you this evening. Okay, Robin, if you would please continue.
Okay. So just as a summary of the requests tonight, as stated in the introduction, the applicant is requesting to rezone from AG1 to R3A to develop 73 single-family lots at 1.55 units per acre, as well as a two-part concurrent variance, and we'll discuss those in more detail as we go along. So right here we have the location. I think you're all familiar with the location. It's the entire area around the red on the west side of Hopewell Road, and it's located north of Vickery Crest and south of Brookshade. This is the current zoning. The beige is AG1. You can see to the north is R2A, and to the east is some other AG1 scattered lots, as well as R3 portion that's undeveloped but zoned, and then to the southeast is R3, and then the CUP, as well as some AG1 lots to the south, which comprises of the AG of Vickery Crest, and then to the southwest is R4A, which is a little bit higher density, and then to the west, a portion of Brookshade is R3A. This is the future land use map. This was just updated in 2016 at the end of the year. The subject site is considered to recommended to be AEE, which is agricultural, equestrian, and estate residential at 1 unit per acre. As you can see to the east, it's the same, and then to the southeast is medium density residential, and then as you go around to the south, Vickery Crest is medium density residential at a higher rate, and then medium density residential to the southwest at an even higher density, and so on. This is a site plan that was submitted on August 23rd with the 73 lots. I just want to go over some of the items of the public involvement. On September 24th, the community zoning information meeting was held. The applicant was there, as well as 67 people in attendance based on the sign-in sheet. Their concerns included traffic flow through the existing neighborhood, was going to need to be addressed, and also issues with site distance on Hopewell Road may be an issue. Secondly, applicants should look at a connection across or around the lakes to provide ingress, egress from Hopewell Road only. Other issue was lot sizes and width should match the adjacent neighborhoods. Most felt they should consider a site plan that met the AG1 standards. The applicant should consider a buffer adjacent to other neighborhoods. There were concerns regarding sanitary sewer access and work required to make that connection. Issues with trees should be considered and impacts to existing canopies should be minimized. And there was a lot of discussion about the ability to provide comments if they were not able to attend the meetings. And that was also one suggestion was to have the city clerk outline the rules, which staff did do on the website. The public participation report, the applicant is required to hold a public participation meeting, which was done on October 9th, and staff received it on October 15th, so they met the minimum requirements per our ordinance. The issues that were brought up at that meeting with 12 people in attendance were lot widths, pond buffer, number of homes proposed, the lot size and desire for 1+ acre size lots, a tree buffer green space including preservation of trees and protection of streams and wetlands, issue with Hopewell Road entrance including concern over noise traffic with existing plan, and hope that plans should mirror existing neighborhoods including property lines, setbacks, home sizes, and style quality. At the City of Milton Design Review Board, it's a courtesy review for rezonings on October 2nd. The DRB stated they need to tie in with the minimums for Vickery Crest and Brookshade, abide by what the rules are. The applicant should set up a stakeholders meeting between the staff and citizens to address citizens' issues. They also stated we don't see anything viable about the proposal, and lastly, address construction traffic through the existing neighborhood. And based on the applicant's site plan submitted on August 23rd, it's not revised at this point, staff offers the following. So I won't go through all these, but this is basically an outline of what the R3A zoning district requires. And at this point, the actual development standards are being met as proposed on the site plan. So other site plan considerations. This plan indicates a sanitary sewer easement northeast of the site originating in the Brookshade subdivision, just north of the northern lake, east of lot number 24. Staff notes that the subject site is not included for sewer service within the intergovernmental agreement for the extraterritorial provision of sewer service with Fulton County. That's a long thing to say. And the associated map. Staff notes that without the service of public sewer to the site, the requested minimum 18,000 square foot lots cannot be developed, but minimum 1 acre lots served by individual septic systems can be developed. The ESA, or Environmental Site Analysis report, is sufficient and satisfies the requirement of the zoning ordinance. The applicant has stated the following, that the subject site contains wetlands, floodplains, streams, and ponds. And going on to discuss the concurrent variances, our zoning code requires that the applicant meet the 4 different considerations, and I've listed them out. But I'm going to go and continue on to the discussion about the first request. After further discussions with the Public Works Department, the Milton Trail Plan has been updated, and this frontage of Hopewell Road no longer requires a trail, but will be required to develop a sidewalk along the frontage. Therefore, staff recommends withdrawal of Part 1 of VC 1807. In regards to reducing the stream setback from 25 feet to 0, and just to clarify, it's not the entire stream buffer, but so you have a total of 75 feet. The first 25 feet next to the pond or lake is a state buffer. The second 25 feet is a city buffer, and the last 25 feet is the impervious setback, or what is called a stream setback in the actual ordinance. And it is staff's opinion that this request offends the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance, but in this case to the environment, chapter 20 of the city code. Since this setback intent is to protect streams and ponds from pollution through daily runoff from adjacent and nearby impervious surfaces. Secondly, the applicant has not demonstrated that there are extraordinary and exceptional situations that would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography. It is staff's opinion that the subject site can be developed in such a way as not to delete this setback. Further, relief, if granted, would cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding property. Lastly, it is staff's opinion, based on the elimination of the 25-foot impervious setback, that the public safety, health, and welfare are not secured and substantial justice is not done. Therefore, staff recommends denial of Part 2 of VC 1807. In regards to the standards of review, the first question is whether the zoning proposal will permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby property. So this is a map that outlines the various subdivisions and indicating the different development that has occurred. So to the east, number 1 is zoned R3. It's not developed at this point, but it's zoned at 1.22 units per acre. To the southeast is Milton Place and Hopewell Place subdivisions. They range in from 1.64 units per acre to 2 units per acre, with 1 acre lots along Hopewell Road for both those subdivisions. And then further to the southeast, number 4 is Glen Haven subdivision. That's been developed at 3.46 units per acre. And although it doesn't have a 1 acre lot per se, there is an open space along the frontage that provides a bit of a buffer between the houses and the road. And as we go on to the south, as the CUP is Vickery Crest subdivision. It has various different pods with 1 acre lots along the southern property borderline of the subject site. And then as you go further south, it changes sizes to minimum 18,000 square foot lots and 15,000 square foot lots and 1 acre lots along Hopewell Road. Further south is a subdivision that was zoning was approved in 2017 for R4A, but they have minimum 15,000 square foot lots and 1 acre lots along Hopewell Road. To the southwest is Providence Oaks subdivision, and that is developed with 2.14 units per acre. And then to the west is Brookshade within a couple of different zoning districts, R3A at 1 unit per acre overall, and then R2A at 0.98 units per acre overall, with 1 acre lots along Hopewell Road. And back to the east, and number 10, those are just individual AG1 lots. So it is staff's opinion that the proposal may adversely impact existing use or usability of the adjacent properties to the east, northwest, and south as described above. The proposed development does not provide a transition between the existing lot sizes to the east, north, and west, and south, as well as provide 1 acre lots adjacent to Hopewell Road. The subject site may have a reasonable use currently zoned AG1. It is staff's opinion that the proposal may cause a burden on existing streets and schools if approved as submitted. The City of Milton Comprehensive Land Use Plan Update 2016 map, as I stated earlier, indicates AEE, and that is the site plan submitted is inconsistent with that map. It is also inconsistent with the following plan policies: to support appropriate residential and non-residential infill development and redevelopment in ways that complement surrounding areas. Secondly, encourage development that is sensitive to the overall setting of the community and will contribute to our community's character and sense of place. And the City of Milton's comprehensive plan update is, I think I just did that, so sorry, I'll just skip that again. Sorry. And number 6, the proposed development is inconsistent with the plan map recommendation of AEE, which requires minimum 1-acre lots. In addition, the proposed lot sizes specifically on the exterior of the development should be a minimum of 27,000 square feet and 1-acre lots adjacent to Vickery Crest to the south and adjacent to Hopewell Road. Based on these facts, staff recommends denial to rezone from AG1 to R3A. The proposed use will be environmentally adverse to the natural resources, environment, and citizens of the city as proposed based on the request to eliminate the 25-foot stream and lake setback, as well as the elimination of the majority of specimen trees on the site. And in conclusion, staff recommends withdrawal of VC 1807 Part 1 and denial of VC 1807 Part 2, and therefore recommends denial of RZ 1813 from AG1 to R3A. A set of recommended conditions are included if the mayor and city council chooses to approve this petition. So I'll just run through these fairly quickly. If you would recommend approval and subsequently the council, staff recommends no more than 73 units at a 1.55 units per acre. But with the stipulations that there's minimum 27,000 square foot lots along the north and west property lines adjacent to Brookshade, minimum 1 acre lots adjacent to Vickery Crest to the south and along Hopewell Road. Also, staff recommends a minimum heated floor area per unit be 2,500 square feet, which is equitable with what the other subdivisions surrounding it has their minimum as. In regards to dedications and improvements, access to the site and frontage improvements shall be subject to the approval of the City of Milton Department of Public Works prior to issuance of a LDP, subdivision plat, or CO, whichever comes first. Entrances shall conform to Chapter 48. 2 separate ingress-egress points shall be provided in compliance with Chapter 22 and 48 of the City of Milton Code of Ordinances, and construction traffic shall not be permitted to use Donegal Lane for access to this property. Construction traffic shall not, again, repeating myself, provide sidewalk along entire Hopewell Road frontage and connecting to existing infrastructure on adjacent parcels as required by the City of Milton Public Works. And that is the conclusion of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions prior to the applicant coming up, as well as afterwards.
Great. Thanks, Robin. Does anybody have any questions for staff before we proceed? We'll have some later, I think.
Okay.
Robin. Thank you. Okay, if the applicant would please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission members. My name is Joshua Scoggins with the law firm of Miles Hansford and Talent, 202 Triple Gap Road, Cumming, Georgia, 30040. I represent the Sue family, who is a rezoning applicant here tonight. I have requested a deferral of this hearing based upon the fact that after our CZIM meeting and our public input meeting, I committed to the neighbors that I would go back to our client and try to look at revisions to the site plan. It has been somewhat difficult, given some personal health situations, for us to communicate regularly with our client. I finally got permission to do that Friday. So I have instructed our land planner to go back and address several of the comments that Ms. McDonald made. So with that, I also sent an email out to everyone, assuming I could read their name. I'll offer that caveat, that I was requesting a postponement tonight, but that you had to approve it. So show up just to be safe. But with that, I'll reserve the rest of my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me just make a couple of comments both to the community and to the applicant. And the reason I asked staff to give us a full presentation this evening is because I feel very strongly that when we have a case like this where it's been demonstrated that the community has shown up a number of times for some of the prior meetings, to continue to call you out to attend these time and time again, I think is unfair to the community. It's not, this is time that's away from your families and it's in the evening, and this is not a part of what you do every day. So I'm trying to be respectful of the fact that you have assembled again in significant quantity this evening. So I would like to consider this as a full-blown hearing this evening. So I'm going to advise the members of the commission that we ask questions and assess this, knowing that we have typically, three options at the end of this. One is to accept the request for a deferral based on our questions and answers from staff and applicant and the community. That we also have the opportunity to approve or to deny. And it is my intent to go forward with that full-blown hearing with one of those three outcomes this evening. But I want to give it the benefit of a full vetting so that we don't have to continue to draw the community, ask them to engage time and time again. So that being the case, Robin, is it?
So we have quite a few.
How many do we have?
In opposition.
I should say we had some people that came in late too. If there's anybody who, before we begin the comments, is anybody who would like to speak this evening who has not already submitted a yellow speaker card to staff?
I think we've
Great.
gotten quite a few while I was up
Great.
there.
Okay. How many do we have?
There's 7 that want to speak, and then there's probably another 7 or 8 that just to be read into the record or say that they're in opposition.
Okay. Normally, this is for the community's benefit. The time that we allot to the applicant and/or those speaking in opposition is 10 minutes per side. And in the fact that we've got 7 or 8, if we go 2 minutes per person, we're going to be at 15 or 16 minutes. I'm going to suggest with the support of the commission that we consider going to a 15-minute cap at this point, and we'll see where we are at that point. I know the community that's requesting that each of you try to contain your comments to 2 minutes per person. If there is an opportunity for you to say, I simply endorse what somebody else has already said, I please request that you do that so we can be efficient with our time. But let's ask for a vote. Is anybody in favor of extending to 15 minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we'll cap at 15 minutes to start at this point. So, time for opposition.
Okay, the first person who wants to speak is Jonathan Young.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Young. I live at 720 Hopewell Place Lane in Milton, Georgia. Our subdivision is cat-a-corner from the proposed development. And one of the notes up there was, I believe, supplied by myself when I was here for the design review. It relates to the canopy. What wasn't detailed there is that, in fact, in April of this year, we adopted the tree canopy conservation ordinance, and this proposed plan is in complete violation of even the spirit of that ordinance. It's basically clear-cutting the entire lot and just packing it full of asphalt, be it shingles or paving on the ground. And so I think it's not in community spirit, certainly not the reason we all moved to Milton to have a development like this destroy the forest that I can see from my house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Paula Corwin.
Good evening. I'm Paula Corwin. I live at 165 Oakhurst Leaf Drive, and that's in the Brookshade subdivision off Hopewell Road. My particular property is not actually immediately affected, but should the development get approved, I think we've seen that everyone's property will probably go down just because of the change and the ambiance. We're going to lose the wildlife and just everything that makes our neighborhood special. I just wanted to add to Robin, I wanted to thank her for, I thought, a really excellent summary, and it really just summarized, I think, my feelings. But what I wanted to add, the only reason I came up here was just to say that I did attend the community, can't quite think of the proper name, but when they had
CCIM
this
meeting?
Actually, it was the one where the attorney involved the community, and we showed up there to talk to him. And I was under the impression at that time, and when I summarized it, I sent a summary to our board, and I was under the impression that maybe to try to find some common ground to try to work. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from the owner of this property, but at the same time, we have to find a way to compromise, I was thinking. And the sewer issue was something I thought we could compromise on, but I did not realize at that time, didn't understand that for them to tie into the sewer would mean basically destroying an egress into our neighborhood that we would not be able to keep landscaped. It would be right across from our amenities, our clubhouse. It would be a disaster for us. And I did not realize what I was potentially being, compromising on. And so I just wanted to add that I think that would be another horrible negative to this development. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Don Hodson.
Good evening. My name is Don Hodson. I live at 782 Brookshade Parkway. My property directly abuts the property that's under question. We bought our property 6 years ago, clearly based on, or substantially based on the lot behind us. We did thorough investigation to make sure that the zoning of that property was commensurate with the Brookshade neighborhood, the larger lot sizes. It's already been a proven fact. The house directly next door to us, 792, was sold for $30,000 less just with the threat of this pending development. I don't think there's anyone that questions the right of the Sioux family to develop the property commensurate with the regular zoning. However, the greed of the family to try to build higher density at what is proven to be the expense of hundreds of adjacent homeowners is, to me and to probably the other 100 homeowners, completely unacceptable. So I'd really very much appreciate you rejecting or declining the offer, the proposal to rezone that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kumar Kopia.
Good evening. My name is Kumar Kapaya. I live on 12842 Donegal Lane. That's a home in Vickery Crest subdivision. One of the things I'm against this proposal as it stands now is one of the entrances they're proposing going through Vickery Crest and part of it going from Hopeville Road. Regardless of the lot sizes, I'll have others talk about the lot sizes. But putting that entrance through Vickery Crest adds tremendous amount of traffic to us going through ours, and every one of these cars will go in front of my house. So I'm personally affected. I'm sure others are affected too. But so one of the recommendations would be to make the density such that they can have their entrance solely from Hopeville Road, and whatever adjustments need to be done going around the lake or cutting down the number of lots, so be it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mike Parisi.
So Mike Parisi, I live at 12892 Donegal Lane in the Vickery Crest subdivision, and my property is actually the flag lot that backs up to the parcel we're talking about here. So Paul, first of all, thank you for your motion to treat this like a regular hearing. I appreciate that. I'm one of the folks that has been here for the prior meetings, and then also the last time this property was up for rezoning, which was a plan that actually had less density than this one and ultimately didn't work out, and the developer withdrew after substantial resistance from the community. So it's a little bit of Groundhog Day for me now, standing up here again, talking to a planning commission about the same exact parcel, unfortunately with an even worse plan in front of us this time around. A lot of good points. I thought Robin gave an excellent summary I would just add and echo that, the cut through of Vickery Crest, the density, the extension of sewer, the complete clear cutting of the land, the grading, and the environmental impact of a highly sloped area that's all now going to flow down into a body of water that is then going to flow into parks like Providence Park and other bodies of water. We already have a lot of runoff. We just cleared out one of our retention ponds in Vickery Crest. I sit on the board, and I know that where my property is situated is up on a hill. That is all going to get graded, clear cut, and we're going to have tremendous runoff from that. So I think there's a real environmental impact, and that'll trickle down to other surrounding neighborhoods around Vickery Crest. I think that the strategy here, without actually having a builder or anybody lined up to develop this plan, just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The plan that they've proposed, and as it's been explained to all of us at community meetings, is purely hypothetical, right? When we get a builder, we'll redraw it. And so, in that regard, the logic around why this absolutely must be rezoned to be developed doesn't make a lot of sense. So I appreciate you taking the time. I want to give others time to speak. And Robin, I appreciate your thorough update as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Timothy Garrick.
Hi, I'm Timothy Garrick, 443 Woodliff Place in Vickery Crest. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of the objections that Mike just spoke so eloquently about. But I think I'd like to just address one point that was made earlier by the attorney for the developer. And that is, as part of the last process, which I was very involved with, there was a lot of opportunity with this plan is worse, but there's a lot of opportunity last time to have a lot of these discussions about how to change the plan and how to make the plan work better for these communities. And I'll tell you that even in that situation, there was no real movement at all on the other parties. So when thinking about whether to defer this meeting or to accept this meeting, I would just kind of take that into account because I think that's important. I don't think anything would change whether kind of the arguments made are valid or not by the attorney for the seller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jeff Luderman. And can I just make a note that Mr. Luderman and Mr. Garrick, if afterwards you can fill out the neighborhood, that you state your neighbor, representing the neighborhood, so we need.
Okay, sure. Hey, my name is Jeff Flutterman, 12922 Donegal Lane in the Vickery Crest subdivision. I have tons of notes I won't bore you with. Like others have said, Robin went over the details. I mean, I can go into all that, but I think it's mainly understood, the bullet points. It's against the club. I went to many of those meetings and was a citizen involved in that process. I did not see the applicant involved in that process. I'm in one of the homes with the 1 acre lots on septic surrounding this. Buying the property, as others have stated, I expected that to go forward. And this is zoned AG1. And I expected that land to be developed as such. Don't think that we didn't think this would be developed or, you just, one of these people, not my backyard. I expected that, but a reasonable plan. So to that point, I'll try to hold my frustration back as I say this, but as others have said, 2016 we went through this before, and I feel we haven't, so there was a lot of community feedback. We came to the meetings, we expressed opposition to that plan. 2 years later, they come back with this plan, which in my opinion is much more aggressive. And to me, a Hail Mary to see what sticks. I know this is just me speaking, but it's a little bit insulting in the sense that I feel this is so far from being acceptable. When you sit at the meetings and there's verbiage thrown out there by the applicant and the attorney, we're trying to work with the community and this and that. I see the same easel at each meeting with the same site plan. And then at the last meeting, there was thrown in there, well, let's go through and make zoning conditions. Well, to make zoning conditions on a plan this so far from where we should be, in my opinion, is impossible. I mean, where do you start? And that was echoed by the DRB when we sat I mean, basically, they couldn't come up with suggestions because it was just so far off what the comprehensive land use plan says. So the other, and I don't want to take up too much time, but the other thing is even the spirit of it. David Burry is their, I believe is his name, is the engineer for them. He was not at the last meeting, and I don't see him present at this meeting to discuss realistic plan changes. And I would just appreciate and not waste everybody's time and come forward with a decent plan that we don't have to fix and tweak and this and that and extend and ask for deferrals on, and instead go forward with a realistic plan that the community can get around and you folks can too. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last of the speakers, and I'll just read through the different comment cards that we
Okay.
received. The first one is Suzanne Anderson, 550 Hickory Oaks Court, Milton. She states, we are the city of Milton, and Milton has land use planned the property, and it should remain as currently zoned. The next person is Eileen Quinn, 245 Oakhurst Leaf Drive. My property would back up against the new development. I want the lot sizes and homes to be comparable to my home. I do not agree with the entrance through Vickery Crest. I do not agree with the amount of trees that would need to be removed. Next speaker, or the card, is Doug Hockow, and he states the property shown should not be rezoned per the Milton land use plan. AG1, only 1 acre per lot. We want the homes land to be larger in size than Vickery Crest and Brookshade, the adjacent properties. Pam Back, 215 Oakhurst Leaf Drive. This property should not be rezoned per the Milton land use plan, AG1 only. I think she meant should not be rezoned. Rick Back, 215 Oakhurst Leaf Drive, Milton, Georgia. I oppose this rezone request. The property is currently on AG1 as per the Milton Community Land Use Plan that was recently amended within the last 2 years. As presented, this is high-density housing that is in direct opposition to the land use plan and the character of our city.
The next card is Nanette Herman, 742 Brookshade Parkway, Milton, Georgia. Milton has a land use plan for a reason. This property should not be rezoned or should remain as AG1. Also, we need protection of tree canopies and creek. Deborah Luderman, 12922 Donegal Lane. I support denial of the zoning, primary concern or opposition being that current plan has only access to majority of homes through Vickery Crest. Joseph and Linda Olajinsky, I know that's totally wrong, I apologize. 752 Brookshade Parkway, Milton, Georgia, and they state that they're in opposition to this request. Joe Pella, 770 Hopewell Place Drive. They are in opposition, and proposed plan is not consistent with Milton's values. Significantly increase of traffic within the Vickery Crest subdivision with no benefit to us and will actually negatively impact our value and quality of life.
Mr. Chairman, we had one speaker whose comments were read into the record, but she would like to make a comment to the board.
Okay, well, I'm okay with that.
Thank you so much. I think the one thing I forgot to put on my card that I would like to express is that I would like to respectfully.
Please state your name and
I'm sorry.
Address for the record.
Deb Letterman, 12922 Donegal Lane, one of the properties that would be directly affected, that directly abuts the property of the Sioux. My last and only statement I would like to ask is that you respectfully ask that you deny this deferral request. allow the process to continue on through. And if the applicant has substantial changes that they would like to make, then they can allow the process to happen the way it should. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes the comments in opposition. So.
Okay. All right. At this point, questions for staff or opponent? Or I'm sorry, applicant?
Chairman, you could ask the applicant if he would like to come up to rebut.
Okay. Mr. Scoggins, would you care to rebut?
Mr. Chairman, while I appreciate the comments of the neighbors, we are in the process of trying to amend the site plan to address primarily the comparability of the lot widths and sizes to the adjacent lots. I know this is a contentious zoning. I handled the last one that the developer walked away from. At the end of the day, I have put the county or the city, on notice when the comp plan was being amended that this made absolutely no sense to leave a donut hole of A1 in the middle of a sea of zone subdivisions, especially since we have sewer easements that exist reserved through Brookshade to this property. And I think it would be a mistake to refuse or reject the deferral request, but that's up to the board. I respectfully disagree with some of the comments in the staff report, but I know Mrs. McDonald had to publish that before I could submit the postponement letter with my client's permission. At the end of the day, your attorney will tell you that this comes down to whether or not the agricultural zoning on that property is arbitrary and capricious based on what's around it, based on the access easements for sewer. And I think that requiring an A1 agricultural 1 acre lot zoning when everything around it is not zoned that way is arbitrary and capricious. I have been doing this a very long time, and only once have I had a case that was this egregious. And, I think that consideration should be given to allow Mr. Burry to amend the plan, and I would respectfully request that the Planning Commission grant that deferral. If not, we'll proceed to the City Council, and then we'll proceed from there however we need to do so. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Scoggins, does that conclude your comments during the public comment period?
It does, unless you have questions for me.
We will have questions, but if that concludes your comments, I'll close public comment. Okay, as such, we'll close public comment. Okay, at this point, do we have questions for staff or applicant? Ron?
This is a question for the applicant. Could you tell us how long you anticipate the construction period to be?
After rezoning is completed, I anticipate that the land disturbance permit process would probably take between 3 and 6 months. And the build out of the neighborhood, obviously that's market driven given the price points of where we think these houses will be, but I can't imagine it'd be more than 2 or 3 years, assuming we don't have another Great Recession. It's not that many homes. If it were hundreds and hundreds, I'd have a much longer time horizon on that.
What price point are you anticipating?
Based upon the price of the land, which I do not know, but from what I've heard from the builders we've talked to, we're looking at probably starting in the 5s and 6s and going up into the 7s and 8s at least.
From my review of your site plan, it strikes me that I can't determine how you will access the C and the D block for construction. How would you do that?
I'm assuming C and D block are to the west of the ponds.
That's correct.
That would be done via Donegal Lane. And my comment with respect to that is that road was installed with the intent that it punch through to the Sioux property and continue on. Otherwise, it would have been cul-de-sac. It's not cul-de-sac. It terminates at the property line. I mean,
So you say your construction is going to take 2 to 3 years, and so you'd expect your cement trucks and all the other vehicles associated with the build-out would be going through Donegal Lane for that 2 and 3 year period. Is that correct?
to the back.
Sorry?
To the back side, yes, sir.
Yeah, so you'll be going up Hopewell Place and down, so your cement trucks and your graders and all the equipment and the carpenters and the painters and the roofers, they'll all be schlepping through that neighborhood. Is that correct?
Down the public streets in the neighborhood,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
yeah, public streets in the neighborhood. It's a lot of traffic, don't you think?
I don't know what you would define as a lot. Given the prices of these, I can't imagine that you're going to see a track builder type home builder trying to sell 10 a month in here.
I do believe that the, am I correct in my understanding that the community pool and tennis courts are on Donegal Lane? Is that correct?
It looks to be correct, yes.
Yes, okay. So during the summer months in this 3 year period you're talking about, kids are going to be down there at the pool and you're going to have your cement trucks and everything going past. It just strikes me like it's a safety issue there. What do you think? Would you have your kids there?
I would utilize the public streets. I mean, I can't speak to anything. The site is what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got an access road off of Hopewell Road, 2 lakes in the middle of the subdivision that basically are in the middle of the property that prohibit any kind of real meaningful access across those.
Have you assessed that?
Have I assessed what?
Have you assessed creating a road from Hopewell to access your C&D blocks?
We have not priced it out, but my engineers are telling me that we would basically have to tear out and rebuild the entire dam that exists. And you're looking at probably $500,000 to do that, and then build a road across it. And that would be cost prohibitive.
Okay. Cost prohibitive in what sense?
Cost prohibitive to build an access road over the ponds when we connect to a public road.
Cost prohibitive to do this development?
Yes.
Excuse me, can you put all your microphones close to you
I'm
so
sorry.
everybody can
So it's
hear?
cost prohibitive for you to do it for this configuration. Is that correct?
I mean, anything's possible, but from what I'm being told, when you're talking about putting $500,000 to $1 million into a crossing just to develop however many lots that is right there on the back side, when you access a public street, I mean, it's just going to drive up the development cost to the point where I think it probably wouldn't be feasible.
Okay. Well, it's unfortunate because I think it's a safety hazard for that particular community. Thank you very much. Hey, Robin, this is a question for you. I reviewed your one of the pages in here on the schools. Mm-hmm. If I read it correctly, it seems that both Cambridge High School and the middle school, Hopewell, are currently over capacity. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
When I did a little bit of math here, I found that Cambridge High School is about 7.5% over capacity right now. And the addition, as suggested here, estimated new students generated, I guess I'm supposed to use that column, could add another 1.5% to that total for Cambridge, which would bring us to about 9% over capacity at that school. Is my math correct on that?
I mean, that's correct. And we received this report from, obviously, the Fulton County Board of Education. They have a planning department. And the point of it is just to give information. Zoning can't be totally denied because of overcrowding. It's just giving you an idea of what is
I understand.
intended or
I
what
just want to make sure
anticipated.
I understood that, because we're talking, part of this discussion is about density, and certainly the increased density that is being contemplated here would exacerbate the overcrowding. Not good for the kids at all.
Can I just throw out a point that as far as from the school board's perspective, you see that the elementary school is pretty under capacity.
Yes.
And it's just a demographic trend that during the Great Recession, there was a lot less births and children. And so it's it's a trend at this point, just to let you know that, as time goes on, that smaller number of children are going to go into the middle and the high schools as well. So even though at this point, if all those houses were built at one time, then that would be the issue for the population of each of those schools. So.
Okay. All right. I know other folks on the council here have questions. I just see this as a real burden on the community, especially for the folks in Vickery Crest, and it's going to be difficult for me to support this.
Thanks, Ron. Mark, any questions?
How long has the present landowner owned this land?
Many, many years.
Many years?
Probably.
Okay.
A very long time.
Yeah, that's it for now.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing new.
Okay. Heather?
Can I come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Fred?
Mr. Scoggins, I am a little disappointed that there have been 2 previous meetings, and yet we don't have before us, and I'm not taking away from your expertise. Please understand that. But that there's not the developer or the engineer, someone here who could answer some of the questions that the public brought up.
No, I understand. And the primary purpose, again, was to seek a postponement, given the fact that we have now gotten permission to significantly revise the plan that will actually cut the density, I'm sure of it. That's just physics. By making those lots wider, the property owner cannot be here, obviously. And I would be happy to bring Mr. Burry in, but I haven't heard a question yet that would require necessarily his expertise. I'm happy to supplement any questions you have with his responses. So I apologize that he's not here.
So has a developer been identified at this point?
No.
For the project? So it's still speculative at this point?
It is speculative, but that has no bearing on whether or not it should be zoned.
Oh, I understand, but obviously it's a whole lot easier when we can put a lot more.
I completely agree with that. It's easier to have a builder. I prefer that method. Sometimes, and again, in all fairness to my client, he has been negotiating with builders, but over the last few months, there have been circumstances that have arisen that would make anyone in here not worry too much about their zoning. So,
Mr. Fred, are you finished?
I have some others.
Okay, well, go ahead. Well, on the same line of thinking, so talking about the negotiation part of this, Mr. Scoggins, can you give us some examples of the kinds of things that you intend to represent to Mr. Sue that would be remarkably different?
I have asked Dr. Sue I have not asked him personally. I've gone through his broker. The instructions that I've given to the engineer is to widen all the exterior lots to match the exterior lots of all of the surrounding adjacent property owners.
So have you done the math on that as to how many it's actually going to reduce?
He's working on it now.
Okay.
I literally got permission from the hospital Friday.
Okay.
So,
do any of those conditions that you would be considering take into an assessment of the significance of the tree removal that's required under the current plan?
I'm a bit confused, and Robin can help me on this one. This application was filed before the current tree ordinance was put into effect. if I'm remembering correctly, that ordinance was not adopted at that time.
Right, the ordinance as it's written today allows you to use either the canopy ordinance or the density ordinance.
Right, but, so my question still stands, though. There's a significant number of specimen trees that are identified on the site plan.
Sure.
And, you know, if I look at the theoretical lot drawings, there's no way that 80 to 90% of the tree canopy, whether it's by the tree canopy ordinance or the city ordinance, tree ordinance prior to the adoption of the canopy ordinance, that we can't expect those to be going away. So do you have any comment on the ability to preserve any of those trees?
We've certainly, I believe David Burry's identified most of the specimen trees. We will comply with any ordinances that are in place that require tree preservation. I'm, again, listening to Carter. I think that the current rules that are in place allow trees to be removed as long as they're compensated for. So to that end, I mean, we'll comply with any enforceable ordinances.
And it does, but it's not really within the spirit of Milton, especially with the more recent adoption of the canopy ordinance that we're trying to preserve our canopy at a very high percentage. So do you anticipate any of your compromise to come with any adjustment to the expected number of trees to be removed?
I'll speak with Mr. Burry about that. He's the expert on it. I think that the plan itself is probably going to continue to be looked at under the tree recompense ordinance as opposed to the canopy ordinance.
Okay. And on your list of questions or your list of compromises that you're intending to have a discussion with him about, does it include any questions along the lines of the things that staff has recommended for denial, which would include the reduction of the buffer to the stream or lake? Is that a part of your current contemplated
We'll look at that.
questions?
One of the things I know we can certainly agree to is the house sizes. That's always been something people throw out the 1,600 square feet. Well, I use what's in the ordinance when I don't have a builder. Obviously, these houses are not going to be anywhere remotely approaching 1,600 square feet, so 2,500 square feet is fine. As far as the stream set or the impervious setback variance, we will see whether or not those lots at Front Hopewell Road that back up to that are viable. Once we determine the final lot yield based upon widening the lots around the exterior, we'll see whether or not it's feasible to get rid of some of those that encroach so far as to be not really viable if you impose that additional 25 feet.
Okay. So at this point, it's really not an absolute that would be a compromise worth considering?
Not at this time, because I haven't had a chance to see what David's coming up with.
Okay.
And again, I just want to say too, for the record, this process on this particular go-around has been very unusual from the standpoint of being able to get decisions and direction made. That's why we haven't been able to turn site plans around from week to week to week as people have requested things, because it's been difficult to get permission to do that.
I would encourage you to impress upon the landowner that there is a process that we're trying to abide by.
I understand.
I recognize health issues may preclude that, but short of something like that, I would encourage you to impress upon him the importance of abiding by the process and being available.
Certainly.
Fred, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. If you'd like to continue.
Most of the questions that I have already been presented. As I look at the plan presently, there are 13, I believe, homes on the front edge of Hopewell Road. What excess do they have? I couldn't see how are you going to have a road coming off of those 13 homes?
Hopewell Road will have an entrance.
Hopewell Road?
Yes, sir.
So there is a way.
No, there is a way to access those 13 lots without crossing over the existing lakes and dam, which cannot support a road currently. There's always a way. I mean, if you're willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, you can make anything happen.
Well, but that's where I have a problem, as I say, with the amount of traffic. I calculated roughly 170 automobiles could during the day. And I'm not putting that, most of which will be school time. School buses will be traveling in and out of Donegal Lane. And that's impossible for that number to get out on Hopewell Road at this time. I happen to live across the street.
And I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just.
So, but to say that it's not feasible, to me, it's unacceptable.
I'm not saying that it's not feasible. I'm saying that I don't think it's financially viable to my client.
Okay.
Again, anything is possible.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Smeet?
So, make sure I understand, is the proposal right now as it stands that it would have, this subdivision would have its own entrance off of Hopewell?
It'll have two entrances, one off of Hopewell Road for the lots to the east of the lakes, and then access through Donegal Lane to the rear for lots to the west of the lakes. There's no plan at this point to try to cross over the wet, because it's not just lakes, significant amount of wetlands that are outside those lakes. So you're talking about building bridges that aren't just perpendicular crossings over a stream culvert. I mean, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet of trying to span wetlands and creeks. We would have to, if we went across the existing dam, it would have to be completely ripped out with a new dam put in because it cannot support a road currently. It's not big enough. So I don't think you're going to see, in all candor, a plan that contemplates a road crossing unless they come up with some new magic way to do it that's not going to cost tons and tons and tons and tons of money. I don't think you're going to see a plan that accomplishes one entrance off Hopewell Road with no access to Donegal.
Why can't you go around the lake?
That was contemplated as well because of, again, if you're talking about the south tip of the property where that stream head starts, that's where the bulk of the wetlands is located. And so basically crossing it pretty much anywhere is going to.
What about the other end, at the top of the A area, I guess it is, north area?
Just a second. I think the same holds true. I think that they've got a wider water crossing at that point.
Sorry for interrupting you, Smeet.
Well, to that point, there is another way, which has been suggested by the public, is that you could probably use one road if you adhere to the fact that it is AG1 and it could be 1 acre lots.
We will not agree to 1 acre lots. Again, we feel the AG1 zoning is unconstitutional. I'm not here to make legal arguments. I know people don't want to hear that. This isn't my first rodeo. I understand that people don't like it. But when you create an island like that, after we've asked the city council to consider the fact that it is literally surrounded by other subdivisions that are not zoned agricultural, that forcing us to maintain 1 acre lots is arbitrary and capricious, and I submit is probably going to be struck down.
So but right now what you're contemplating, what size of the lots do you think it's going to be on the revision?
On the revision, there are lots that currently back up to some of the lots on the exterior, especially when you're talking about corner lots There are some that are approaching an acre already. But we're trying to widen the lots to match so that you have one lot backing up to one lot. And I believe, after talking with Mr. Burry, that most of those lots are actually going to be larger than the adjacent lots in the surrounding subdivisions. Because if you look at the ones in Brookshade, Mr. Burry developed almost all the subdivisions around this. And he has all of that in his head with the lot dimensions, and once we factor in the minimum lot widths and backing those rear lot lines out, I think you're going to see that those lots are comparable, if not bigger, in almost every circumstance. But I haven't seen that plan yet because I haven't had a chance to.
So, if number one, have you had a deferral before?
On this?
Yeah,
No.
on this one? No. And number two, do you feel like you will be ready next meeting if the deferral is granted?
Yes.
With your revised plan? This is your final plan, this is your revised plan, taking into consideration the city comments, the public comments, our comments, you'll be ready the next meeting?
Absolutely. I'm not saying that we can agree on everything, but we'll certainly do our best to try to address the comments we can.
Which I would point out, the next scheduled meeting is the 24th, the day before Thanksgiving. 28th? Is that what it is?
So it's the fourth Wednesday ends up being
Okay.
after, just the way the month runs. So
Never
it's
mind.
I believe it would be the 28th that would be the date.
Never mind. So it's the week after Thanksgiving. All right.
So basically, one entrance off of Hopewell for potentially, as it stands right now, 13 homes. But the other entrance is the other access into this subdivision is through Vickery Crest.
Yes.
And Donegal Lane.
Yes.
And is there, you said it's a public road right now, so you don't need to have any other easements or anything.
It was built, as I understand it from the developer, it was stubbed out into this property with the clear intention that it was going to be punched through to this property. Nobody can look at that and tell me, I see it all the time. It's not cul-de-sac. It runs straight to the property line with the sole intent that it was to be extended. I know people don't like it, but that is what it is. If it were cul-de-sac and cut off, I could understand that, but that wasn't the intent, and that's not what's shown on the plats. So that is our client's intention to utilize that street.
The developer didn't own that adjacent property. So he may very well have stubbed it to the edge of the property, but he didn't own the adjacent property.
He did not. Now I'll concede that he didn't own the adjacent property. Dr. Sue has owned that property, as Robin said, for a long time. But I can confirm that he was in negotiations with all of the developers around him, including swapping property with several of them to create the entrance into Brookshade. That entrance wouldn't exist if he hadn't given the land to create it. So there's no question that the easements, the road stubs, all that stuff is there for a reason. It's not by accident.
So for some reason, if Vickery Crest were to make that a private road, can they make that a private road?
The city can make it a private road.
Right.
We would object to that and address it accordingly.
Now, has there been any other discussion, and again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but for some reason to make this area a part of the Vickery Crest?
If Vickery Crest is open, not from our side, if Vickery Crest is open to that, I can't imagine trying to get, I don't know how many homeowners are in Vickery Crest, but trying to get 3 people to agree to something is incredibly difficult. So if it required buy-in from the whole neighborhood, I'm sure we would certainly entertain it. It makes sense, but I don't think I'll get a warm and fuzzy for that.
Again, that was off the top of my head, but I was just trying to think of if that alternative has been discussed at some point.
I believe it was discussed briefly at the public participation meeting that I held, just briefly. but I can't say that for certain. I was speaking and not being able to take notes, so.
Now, I know you said that the owner, Dr. Sue or whatever, has some health issues right now, but
It's his family.
His family has
Yeah.
health issues, okay. So is there any other reason why they have not, picked a builder, developer? Can you give us, obviously you understand what's going on here. There's feedback that's coming back from the community saying that we've made these, things aren't being changed. We're giving all this feedback, and then you're asking for a deferral today, but I think you need to provide a little bit more reason as to why, they haven't gotten to a certain point at this point.
Without violating my client's right to privacy, I'll just say that his wife is very ill, and they've basically been living out of the hospital for the last 6 months. And like I said, in that situation, I don't know that anybody would care so much about a zoning.
Smeet, any further questions?
Quick question for staff. How long has this land been zoned AG1?
Since the beginning of time of
Since Fulton County adopted zoning.
We didn't create a donut hole. It's always been this way, right?
That doesn't
In a sense, we didn't change
make
this-
it
we
legal.
didn't change the zoning.
Well, yeah, all property is zoned.
I understand some change, but this has always been this way.
Let's be real now.
Mr. Scoggins, that was a question for staff from.
Yeah, that was just, all I'm asking is, this has always been AG1. So we didn't change it for anybody. We didn't hurt
it was
the present
zoned
landowner
originally.
by changing it and diminishing his potential value. It's always been AG1.
Correct.
Okay, that's all.
Well, so is every other property in Georgia.
But your spin is that we've created this and we've put him in a bid. It's always been that way. He bought it as AG1.
I just litigated that case in the Georgia Supreme Court, and the court said that is absolutely, completely irrelevant and incorrect.
Okay, well,
So
probably
I'll
find out.
I'm not trying to argue with you.
But just the way it's presented, it's like we did something to change it, but we
welcome
didn't.
to Milton. We do things.
No,
like
hey, I've worked in Milton. I understand.
Carter or Robin, I have a question for you. On page 7 of the staff report, there's some remarks regarding the from the fire marshal, and it's talking about an entrance that's required for emergency access. And I don't really understand how that comes into play with the site map that's been presented by the applicant. Can you help me understand that?
Sure. Under our current fire code, anytime you have more than 30 single-family lots, it requires 2 entrances. Those entrances, one of those entrances obviously has to be a public vehicular entrance. The second entrance can be secured for fire department access only and be an emergency road that would support emergency services vehicles. So if you had something happen internal to the subdivision, there would be a secondary way for people either to get out of the subdivision or for emergency vehicles to get in. And typically what we see and what we've seen in other cases is you have a fire within the subdivision. It requires them to bring hoses and equipment across the roads, which blocks entry and exit, both for the residents and for other emergency service vehicles. So that code, which is in place now, it wasn't in place when the subdivisions around this property were built, but requires that secondary access for anytime you get over 30 single-family homes.
And so, Carter, with that statement, does the site map that's been presented meet the requirements by the fire marshal? Or does it require another road?
The back portion of it, which is on the west side of the lake that has more than 30 homes, does not have a secondary access point.
Okay. So my question then, Mr. Scoggins, is have you contemplated that? And if so, how do you intend to address that with the current site map?
Mr. Burry is working with the fire department on that question. I think there is some interpretation issues that he's going back and forth with on the fire marshal as to whether or not you're talking about actual ingress and egress to the subdivision itself, or whether or not people have more than one way to get out of the neighborhood. The interior street layout provides a way to do that without necessarily having to have multiple entrance points coming in and out. It's all I know about that right now. Mr. Burry is working with it. If it turns out that that's the case, then that's the case. But I've seen many situations, and I agree with Carter, most of the subdivisions around don't have that requirement. And that's something we'll deal with when it arises.
Okay, thank you. Robin, in looking at the surrounding, if you go to page 4, I guess, of the staff report, and you look at all the densities that are around this, how many of those were zoned to the higher density since we became a city of Milton? Were those all prior zonings by Fulton County?
So the only zonings that we have done since we've been incorporated, let me get to it, it's actually further back. What's that? Would be number 6, which is the most recent one that I believe was about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Hang on, I'm on a different map. Hang on a second.
Yeah, page 15.
Okay.
Where's
6.
So number 6, which was zoned it was RZ 1702, so it would have been the beginning of 17. That was approved at 1.09 units per acre with minimum 15,000 square foot lots. And then the other item that well, actually there's 3 of them. And then number 4, we rezoned. It was about in 2013 or so that we did that rezoning to the. It was actually it's not rezoned. It was a T3. Well, it was converted into T3, but it was a NUP, so it's a little confusing. But it's at 3.46 units per acre developed. And then the last one would be number 1, which is was done in 13 as well, 2013, and it's zoned R3 with minimum 18,000 square foot lots at 1.22 units per acre, and that is it has a land disturbance permit, but it hasn't begun development yet.
And that was, if I remember, was that one part of the Fulton County sewer map? Originally?
No,
it was
both of those. So the only one that would have been part of the sewer map would have been number 4.
Yep.
But number 6 and number 1 were amended right after the rezonings were done at a subsequent meeting.
Okay. And then the shading, you can see Alpharetta is clearly identified to the left of number 6. And is the shading immediately below number 6 and below number 4, are those also Alpharetta?
Yes.
So those are really transitional areas going back into Alpharetta zoning?
Well, I do believe the area below number 6 is the exact same. The 15,000 square foot lots, I think it's R15 there. I don't know what to the south west, what that zone, but I assume it's also probably an R15.
Okay.
And then below number 4 is basically a higher density, multi-family senior living.
That's Alpharetta.
Yeah. Right, that's Alpharetta.
Yeah, that's my point, is those are transitional areas back into Alpharetta. Okay. Robin, at one point, Mr. Scoggins represented to the city this evening that there are sewer rights and easements that they're entitled to in this. Can you comment on that?
Yes, in the Brookshade subdivision, there is a sewer easement that was part of the subdivision. So if Carter wants to speak more about that, but it is an easement that they have a right to access if there were to have a rezoning to this area and to have the map amended. That is the intention to bring the sewer from Brookshade through that sewer easement.
But it would be considered by our current sewer map an extension of sewer, correct?
That, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Scoggins, did you or the landowner participate in any of the comprehensive land use plan update meetings?
I sent a certified letter to Mayor Lockwood and the county attorney requesting, actually I sent multiple letters, requesting that this property be designated as residential, not agricultural. I've also submitted numerous letters to the city requesting an extension of or an amendment to the sewer map. Some of those letters date back 2 or 3 years. I know that it was done, the first one that was sent was done during the comp plan update.
But you didn't actually participate. There were multiple meetings where you could have represented those facts to the community that was making those assessments and determinations as to what the map was going to look like. You chose not to attend?
If I had thought that it would have done any good, I would have attended.
Okay, so the answer is no.
The answer is my client didn't tell me to come to those meetings to advocate his position. Yep. He told me to put it in writing to the city, which is what I did.
Okay. Yeah, we hold those meetings so we can get community input so everybody can participate, and that's exactly the time when those kinds of concerns are meant to be heard. So I encourage, if you're developing further lots in Milton, that you choose to participate in those kinds of meetings in the future. Okay, any questions? Oh, yeah, Heather, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have more, I guess, notes or concerns more than questions. But your point about the sewer map was one that we had not really discussed much of, and so I do have concerns about that. Although noting, recognizing, there are sewer easements in the vicinity, but it is not currently on the map. And then the lot sizes not being consistent with the surrounding developed lots adjacent. I'm not in support of the variances that have been requested. I don't believe that any extraordinary or exceptional situations have been demonstrated to support those. I do have concerns about the trees. I do recognize there is the stub from Donegal Lane. And unlike some others, I understand that when a stub is stubbed to an undeveloped piece of property, when I look at that, that says to me the intent is to connect to that adjacent property. However, the alignment of this proposed development, I have concerns about, because it really does not create a neighborhood. It creates two separate developments, if you look at it, rather than a cohesive development, because there is no connectivity between the east and the west across the lake. So I do have concerns there, and the fire department's comments. And so I would encourage some re-review by the developer, the property owner, for some crossing over the lake to provide connectivity between the east and west sides of this development. So I have a lot of concerns about the way that it's currently laid out. And those have been my comments.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else had anything come to mind in the course of the conversation?
If I can make just one comment, there has been a little bit of discussion tonight about the constitutionality of the current zoning, and I just want to make it clear that the Planning Commission's task tonight is to make a recommendation based on this proposed zoning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Okay, so as was the case when we opened the meeting and we had the discussion about the options that are available to us this evening, there are three. We can support the request for deferral, which in my mind a support of that would be our endorsement that we think that there is active negotiation going on that's addressing the concerns of the community that have been expressed in a variety of meetings, including this evening's. I will tell you that I don't know that from what I've heard this evening from the applicant, that the significance, but the most significant things that have come to our attention, both by the community and those outlined by staff, are being addressed. It sounds like there's maybe some surface items being addressed, but nothing that is remarkably different that would make the staff's recommendations change from denial to anything other than that. So our other two options are approval or denial. So I will entertain a motion.
May I ask a procedural question first of staff? If this were denied or recommended for denial, does that limit their opportunity to defer or withdraw, come back and ask for a different rezoning or a different request on this property?
So your recommendation is just a recommendation.
Right.
It would go forward to the mayor and city council, and then they have the same process to review the development or rezoning. So it depends on what their final decision is.
Okay. But our recommendation tonight would not impact the property owner or the applicant's ability to do
proceed.
anything.
Yes,
It's
you're
ultimately
only a recommendation.
the decision of the city council.
Yeah, you would actually hope that our decision would prompt even further action on the part of the applicant either with the community or with the developer or the landowner to make sure that some of those things are addressed prior to the city council meeting. I would also add that if it is denied by mayor and council, there is still opportunity to come back and develop this land. It just has to come back with a significant difference that, well, I think it has to stay dormant for a year, Robin, if it's the same.
Well, I would suspect if the mayor and city council denied it, they would appeal to Superior Court. They wouldn't start over again.
Right.
So, but I mean, that is an option for them to be either significantly different within 6 months or to wait a year or to appeal to Superior Court.
Okay. Any other questions or comments prior to entertaining a motion?
I'll entertain a motion to deny the RZ 18-13.
And second part, Fred, the VC 18-07.
1807.
And do you
one, part 2.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Again, that's why I kind of asked the questions about, has there ever been any sort of deferral? I understand the concern, but I think at least given the opportunity, one last shot, basically, knowing that all the comments that have been out there and our concerns, and, they've got to come back with their best plan, and they've asked for that deferral before the meeting. So, I kind of think that giving them an opportunity for that would be again, they've asked for that deferral. It's not, they've asked for a deferral knowing that they've got revisions that are coming forward. So.
Right. Yeah, I would just comment, Smeet, that for the recommendation or the motion that's on the floor does not prohibit that continuation of the negotiation or to have additional meetings to be held between now and the meeting by the mayor and council. Okay, all those in favor of the motion by Fred for denial signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-2. Robin, that's the only item we had on our agenda tonight.
That's correct.
I have one more comment to make before we adjourn. The city's done a wonderful job of recognizing the contribution by Mark Law, and we have not. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional. As a planning commission, we've worked very closely with Mark, and he's made a tremendous contribution to our ability to work as a city for its betterment. And I just wanted to say I'm going to miss Mark's contribution. We wish him all the best in his health journey and his retirement, and we can't thank him enough for for the contribution he's made here, and I just want to make sure we set that into the record.
Okay, I'll make sure he watches.
Thank you. Yeah. We have a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.